Hello and welcome everyone to this GSA Super Mario Brothers 3 race between Aweglib and MaCobra52. I'm Scotch and Tie Guy. Here in the booth with me is Teeks. Teeks, how you doing today, man?
I'm well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm stoked for this matchup. You know, we're deep now in this Super Mario Brothers 3 tournament. We're out of that, group stage where we had the time trials, if you will, for this bracket, but we are now inside this tournament, and Oglib and Macro Bra are seem like they're just about ready to go here. But looking forward to a great race.
Yeah, these are two really solid runners, so definitely worthwhile keeping an eye on them. So I'm definitely looking forward to what both of them were able to put out tonight. So I do
Looks
believe
like
we're still in the process of setting up. So please hang tightly, and we'll be starting shortly.
we've got to go.
All right, so we're starting off in World 1 right now. 1-1, each runner will want to take a moment to build P-Speed right away, make their way over the first Piranha, and boost into the clouds off the second Power Koopa from the platform. Easy way to avoid the obstacles that are on the ground that could potentially slow you down. Looks like they're both very much in sync, so really, really solid start from both our runners.
Well, the key thing here is consistency, and like you said, all about building that P speed as quickly as you possibly can, because that's gonna be the quickest way from point A to point B uh, here in SMB3. It's not gonna be until later down the line where you're gonna P speed isn't that much of an issue. As far as like maintaining it and all, just simply because of auto scrollers and specific levels like that. But here at the beginning stages, we're definitely going to be wanting to focus on P speed.
Yeah, you noticed both of our runners took the same approach to level 1-3. They stayed small Mario in level 1-1, and they decided to just pick up the first mushroom in 1-3. This is actually the optimal way to do it, and it'll save you about 1 or 2 seconds, but you'll see some runners periodically just go for it in 1-1 in order to avoid having to deal with the boomerang bro right in the beginning. So we're coming up on our first auto-scroller now. There's not going to be too much going on in the level aside from a bit of platform hopping and the raccoon leap that each of our runners will be picking up along the way. That will, of course, be coming in handy for the fort that they're going to be playing next. It's also worth noting that auto-scrollers are generally a good opportunity to keep an eye out for your score and coin count, because there's always that possibility that you can get a coin chip later on. Coin chips can spawn in place of one of the Hammer Bros on the world map, and this happens when your coin count is a multiple of 11 and the second to last digit of your score matches that coin count. So, for example, the coin chip will spawn if your score ends in 80 and your coin count is 88, or if it ends in 90 and you have 99, and so on. Coin chips can potentially pop up in worlds 1, 3, 5, and 6, so it's never too early to be wary of those numbers. Admittedly, it's a pain to have to do any mental math on the fly, but the time repercussions for encountering a coin chip can easily swing a race or cost you a PB, since you would otherwise have to play an autoscroller as slow as the World 4 airship.
Well, we had that first auto scroller there. We're going to go through this castle. Pretty good job avoiding those fire orbs. Grabbing this whistle here.
Yes, someone in chat is asking, what happens if you get the coin chip requirement in the other worlds? I'm presuming they mean worlds 2 and 4. You won't really have to worry about that. And obviously in World 7, there's not going to be any Hammer Bros left. You'll have those Piranha plants that are you automatically have to play for 100%. So they're not going to transform, so you're not going to have to worry about that. And there's no Bros in World 8.
Yeah, just a reminder, this is 100%, so these guys will be completing the whole game. So for instance, when we get to the very end here with hands, it's not going to really matter too much whether they get pulled in by the hands. I mean, a second or two, kind of negligible though, just simply because they're going to have to play the level regardless.
All right, so we see Aweglib making his way out of level 1-6. So that's one of the levels where you want to start a full jump on the far right end of the first platform, allowing you to stomp that first Koopa without slowing down. You continue along the way until you reach the 3 wooden beams, 2 of which are hanging from cables, and you want to start running as far to the left as you can in order to ensure your highest chances of getting P-Speed. Every once in a while, you can miss P-Speed by getting frame rolled, and what that means is that as soon as you start running, the game checks your P-Speed every 8 frames. So if you're hitting that checkpoint while running over the small gap, you'll fail to completely fill your meter and reach the Koopa. You can recalibrate by turning back and starting another cycle, although each attempt will cost you about 4 seconds.
Moving right along here to this first auto-scroller on the chip here. Both these guys gonna have Fire Flower, obviously making the fight much easier.
Yeah, so as we approach our first Koopaling boss fight, it's worth noting that these bosses are coded with a small handful of fixed fighting patterns. So, for example, they can jump the moment you enter the fight, they might shoot their wand right away, or they can just walk towards you for a few seconds before they do anything else. And this is important because knowing what pattern you get will indicate how you should approach fire killing them. And just as a general matter, you want to go for fire killing the Koopalings because it'll save you about 2 or 3 seconds over just doing normal jump kills. And the pattern you get was determined by a timer, and it starts from the last level you completed to the frame upon which you entered the pipe in the airship. There was a little bit of manipulation you can do in World 1 in order to obtain a desirable pattern, and depending on where the Hammer Bro spawns, you can grab the Fire Flower just as the level is transitioning out, and then you could save a couple frames of lag that you would otherwise get just from the power-up animation. So that could potentially give you a good pattern. So they're making their way to level 2-1 now. It's pretty straightforward in terms of execution. It's just a matter of holding B and right upon entering the level to build your P-Speed, hitting that first jump as soon as you rub that first block, and then bouncing on the series of the other fake blocks that come afterwards. If for any reason you miss a stomp on the solitary fake block that's on the ground, you can make a full leap at P-Speed to the second note block, although it's pretty easy to collide into that fire snake, so it's not too terribly advisable, but it is possible.
A lot of precise movement there. Don't want to fall into that water. Water in SMB3 is just so slow and can kill your time so much, so making sure to stay above that, really important, especially with those blocks being single blocks. So really precise movement needed.
So we're making our way to the first and only fort that's in World 2, and the trickiest part of that fort is right in the beginning because you have an opportunity to gain early P-Speed on that lower level. And it's much easier said than done, considering the floor is littered with dry bones, so it'll require some really small, meticulous jumps, just small enough to clear them while allowing yourself as much of the ground to run on as possible in order to start building that meter. And even though the time save is small, it's worth going for since it's a relatively low-risk strat. You just want to avoid stomping too many of these dry bones throughout the section, or you'll never build P-Speed upon entering that pipe. Alright, so we see MaCobra making his way through 2-3. This level is a good exercise for having carefully measured medium jumps. You'll want to stay on that lower end of those pyramid platforms to build your P-Speed, and then carefully time the height of your jumps as you stomp out these fake blocks to make your way over to the far end of the level. And then as soon as you kick the shell to start breaking the blocks, you immediately want to start positioning yourself in such a way so that you're right over the pipe and ducking. That way you can just hold down and then just exit as soon as the path is fully cleared.
Well, now we've got this angry sun coming at us. Not really sure what Mario did to make him so mad, but pretty easy to avoid. Stays in the same position on your screen, so as long as you're able to jump at the right time, pretty easy to avoid.
Yeah, as long as you're on those rows of blocks that are scattered throughout the ground, then the angry sun can never reach you. So that's one of the nice benefits. It's one of the freer stages in the game. So we see Aweglib making his way through level 2-4. It's one of those levels that are a little bit annoying just because it starts off with a really tightly timed jump running at P speed. And you use this jump to boost off that first set of Koopas. If you miss the first one, you can still recalibrate by bouncing the second one past the Boomerang Bro and the Fire Piranha straight to the end. It's a little scary because you may have to readjust your movements on the fly depending on where that first Boomerang Bro is standing. You could either stomp him, collide into him, or just move right past him, and you'll never know because he's off-screen while you're in the air. So it's very easy to choke away whatever groove you had going for you and then fall right into a nearby pit. I've certainly done that a good handful of times. So we see MaCobra making his way through the pyramid right now. There's two strats that the runners want to make use of in the pyramid. The first of which is boosting past that first block wall by running into it with a Buzzy Beetle shell, and then throwing it at the wall with just enough space between you to duck and sneak by. And interestingly, the game grants you a small window of invincibility as you're when you're that close to the ricocheting shell, which is why you can see these runners just sneak right past by without taking any damage. The second strat is, once you get to the upper level, is just a matter of allowing that second shell to drop from the ceiling and then just break the path open for you to duck slide under.
Yeah, no deaths so far, which is nice to see. We're only in World 2, so I want to see that these guys keep up this momentum for the rest of the game.
Alright, so we see Aweglib making his way through level 2-5. This basically just entails making a series of small meticulous jumps while avoiding obstacles that are in your way, and this will include the chain chomps right out of the gate and the Koopas later on. Interesting thing about the chain chomps is they don't necessarily charge at you the same way each time you enter the level. There is an element of RNG involved. So every once in a while you'll get unlucky and he'll be right in your way as soon as you're trying to jump onto that row of wooden blocks, the two tiny ones right in the beginning. Fortunately, there's no levels past the World 2 fort that requires the use of a Fire Flower, so even if you take damage from one of these chain chomps, you can easily just pick another one up on the airship. Speaking of which,
our next ship auto-scroller here. Just keeping yourself busy, make sure that you're not getting hit by any bullet bills or by any cannonballs, but otherwise pretty straightforward and easy.
Yeah, even though it's a relatively easy airship, you still want to be careful, especially right in the beginning when you're the screen is just littered with a bunch of bullet bills. But there is you do have a safe area where you could just stand on that on one of those sets of blocks, and then you'll just be out of the line of fire until more of the passage opens up for you. So we'll be seeing what kind of patterns they get for Morton Koopa and if they decide to do any of the fire kills. So it looks like Aweglib is just going for the traditional jump kill, and it looks like MaCobra's following suit, only a couple seconds behind, so they're both on really good pace so far.
Well, Aweglib taking the lead here.
Yeah, they both ended World 2 on a really strong note, so really good job to both our runners. It's also worth noting that we're still really early in the game, so we're still at a point where anything can happen. But it's always really hard to see when two of our racers are really that close to each other.
World 3, stuff's gonna start getting interesting here. Water levels, as we said before, really slow stuff, so you're gonna want to avoid as much of this swimming as you possibly can, as we can see there with Aweglib taking that area above.
Alright, so it looks like Aweglib is going to be coming up on level 3-2, and this is a level where I'm sure most runners have dreaded at some point, and it's a pretty common set point to reset on. And a lot of that is attributed to the hitbox interactions between Mario and the Cheeps that are in the water. There are instances in which you can be directly on top of their sprite to stomp kill them, and then, but if the acceleration speeds are too high at the moment you both make contact, the game will instead register that as damage and you'll fall right through them. The optimum strat for that level it takes a lot of tries to get comfortable with, but you want to start moving forward from the moment the first wooden beam turns left upon hitting the elbow, and then land flush with it, and then start building your P meter. And if you execute that correctly, you can achieve P speed on the set of donut lifts, where you can perform some carefully executed leaps and jumps to allow you to ride the cheap stomps all the way to the exit pipe. And if you do that correctly, it can save you about 3 seconds.
We see Macro taking the lead back there. Aweglib wasn't able to get that P speed there at the beginning of 3-2. Macro, on the other hand, able to get through that area a little bit easier than Aweglib. And here we got castle movement here now. A little bit of puzzling.
Yeah, 3F. Both runners want to get P speed right away and just move past the flumps. They'll want to make their way over the door 6, which will lead straight to the boom boom room. And periodically, you'll see the runners, some runners, try to enter door 3, which would ordinarily lead you straight into the water. But if the player is able to lift up on the screen, which the controller will mark, they can re-enter that door in midair and then go straight to boom that way. It's a risky shortcut that will save a couple seconds, but it's really not good if you're on the wrong good pace or in the middle of a race. So both sides of the place, which is most likely a really good idea. So 3-5 is one of the easier levels in the game to have appealing, but it's just a matter of flying over the water and timing your jumps so that you're landing on that platform to ensure that you have plenty of surface space to run off of to use the speed. And then from level 3-5, you'll want to move over to 3-4. And doing 3-5 it's particularly advantageous to use that order because you can damage boost from your tail for early P speed, allowing you just to run right through the rest of the stage while steering clear of the Goombas and Spinies along the way. Just be careful. You just want to be careful how you measure your jumps because landing on that upward slope can cause you to come to a dead halt if you hit a bad subpixel. And without that speed, you wouldn't be able to make the height you needed to cross over that water gap in the beginning. So we see MaCobra making his way past the Hammer Bros. He wants to take it a little bit carefully. He's taking a little bit of damage along the way, but that's okay. He'll have plenty more power-up opportunities along the way. It might just slow him down a little bit. So he'll have an opportunity to get the mushroom in 3-6, and then if he wants to take a pit stop to grab a fire flower in 3-7, he would have the opportunity to do so. Unfortunately, that mushroom went in the wrong direction, just fell right off the pit. So he's going to have to do a little bit more improvising. He'll still be able to get his mushroom, but he won't have a fire flower equipped for when he does the one-knee kill, and we can comment more on that as that time comes.
So sorry about that. Teeks, unfortunately, we had to flip a switch on Teeks' back. His robo voice came into play. We needed to reanimate his human voice, so we apologize for that. But
I swear I'm human.
But no, good play so far. But you're right. You know, Macro's gonna need to be careful here. Small Mario, obviously not a position you want to be in. Aweglib in a much better position right now.
Yeah, 3-6 is one of the auto scrollers to mess around with. It's a nice cool-off period just to grab your power-ups right in the beginning. And you can take some shots at the Koopas along the way. It's one of the more noteworthy levels in the game to highlight graphical glitches where you can turn item boxes blue and donut lift green. We also refer to them as the moldy donuts in the community. So we see MaCobra making his way through 3-7. It's one of the easier levels to get through in World 3. It's just a matter of running forward with P speed, although you do want to make sure that you're carefully measuring your jumps by the time you make your way to the Spike and Koopa. And that strat just entails stomping on either of them to make your way over to the clouds via the pipe and 2 platforms. And then once you do a small jump at the end of the last cloud, you can make your way onto that block and then just have another follow-up jump that'll take you straight to the level ending card. You can experience some lag frames on your way down from the clouds, which could potentially affect your follow-up jump, but it's not impossible to recover in the worst-case scenario, which just doesn't register in time. So we see both of our runners making their way through the second fort in World 3.
Well, we saw Aweglib take care of Boom Boom there really easily with the Fire Flower, but Macro taking a little bit of extra time simply because he didn't have that fire that we were talking about.
Alright, so 3-8 is one of those levels that doesn't incorporate P-Speed as a strat, just because there's so much water around you. And the objective here is just to clear those 2 ice blocks that are right in the beginning as soon as you can, and then start jumping immediately every time you come in contact with the water. And as long as you're maintaining the same rhythm each time, Big Bertha will get close to you at the very most, but never have the opportunity to eat you. So Aweglib is making his way through 3-9 right now. It's the home of the infamous H-jump. So you'll see our runners try to build P-Speed right away and maneuver past those platforms and bombs in such a way that will position them just past those note blocks, so they have enough height and distance to clear the gap no problem. It's much easier said than done, but if you are able to make it, it does save a good chunk of time, roughly about 5 to 7 seconds. It also allows you to avoid a hefty amount of lag frames due to throwing those ice blocks.
We saw nice. MaCobra had a nice snipe there on the big fish there earlier on. Able to avoid taking a death there. Moving right along. Aweglib back on the auto-scrolling ship. The ships get just a slightly tougher than the last one.
Oh, it seems I stand corrected. Apparently, he did have another MaCobra did have another opportunity to grab that fire flower, and I'm guessing he had the opportunity to pick it up in the second fort.
Yeah, he grabbed it through a note block.
Yeah, it's not one of those levels where you really think to do a pit stop on, just because it takes so much time when you're trying to navigate around in the water, and you have that cheat sheet that's right in your way when you're trying to grab the power up. So you definitely want to have that fire flower before then. So we're up on Airship 3. Wendy Koopa is, interestingly enough, one of the easier Koopalings to fire kill, but the hardest to jump kill normally. And I say it's an easy fire kill because you're on a flat ground in the battle arena, making it very easy to measure your distance and shoot fireballs in pairs until she's down. It's also one of the Koopalings whose patterns you don't really have to worry about too much, just because she could be fought the same way each time. The only disadvantage of having to jump kill her, however, is the fact that she shoots off those rings with the wand that bounce around the room and never disappear until she's defeated. And it's tricky enough just trying to maneuver around them once they're there, but as soon as she starts jumping at various heights, she can easily catch you off guard so they can cause you more damage. So it looks like both Aweglib and MaCobra were able to get through that no problem. So they're only a couple seconds apart as they're entering World 4 now. So we're coming up on one of the more popular worlds for SMB3 players generally, just because a lot of the objects and enemies that you encounter are fun-sized. Okay, so 4-1 has a pretty fun P-Speed strat that's coming up. You want to grab a hold of that big Koopa shell, or at least clear a path with those fireballs so you can land flush with every surface you run on. And then you can build P-Speed just in time to boost past that waterfall onto the upper platforms. And through carefully timed jumps, you can land right in front of the exit pipe. So that'll save you a small chunk of time. Looks like Aweglib was able to get it.
Yeah, MaCobra unfortunately not able to get that P-Speed. I think he's been struggling a little bit with that, in particular through this run so far. Whereas Aweglib is able to, get P-Speed pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's a minor inconvenience, but it's not one of those strats that are particularly catastrophic if you have any trouble with that.
Well, it's just it's the difference between completing a level with within X number of seconds or being 5 to 10 seconds behind that, and it just kind of piles up on itself, and that's how MaCobra's fallen behind here.
Yeah, if it was just one or two mistakes once every here and there, that would be one thing. But you can certainly have situations where it's just death by 1,000 needles, so to speak. Yeah, 4-3 is one of the more aesthetically appealing levels to run through in the game for both the runner and the person watching it. Yeah, more often than less, the first Sledge Bro will try to jump right at the start and run right underneath him, shoot a fireball right away just as a safety measure. There's still enough space between you and the Sledge Bro to react to either situation. And also, it's one of those levels where if you execute everything precisely, the stomps on the Bussy Beetles and the carefully timed jumps on the small platforms just looks really nice.
Well, both of these guys decided to go with star power there at the beginning of that fortress, but MaCobra, unfortunately, taking a little damage from that candle, will lose Fire Flower. Again, losing a little bit of time to Aweglib in that Boom Boom fight.
Yeah, 4F1 is I love to regard it as a gatekeeper for 100% runs because it's definitely one of the trickier fours to do consistently fast.
Oh, Macro getting sniped.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that he's going to be entering the next 3 levels as Small Mario. He'll still be able to pick up both the Mushroom and the Fire Flower in 4 or 5, but that's going to cost him a little extra time just doing those pit stops along the way. But yeah, 4F1 is really hard to be consistently good at. It's good to have that star equipped just as a safety measure, just in case you come in contact with that hot foot candle. It's very hard to avoid even without the star. So, but even so, you want to make sure that you're holding onto that star long enough in order to make any use of it, because you could definitely lose a lot of just enough time if you rub against any of the walls along the way. So 4 or 5 is not a level that you make any use of P-Speed for. It's just pure platform jumping from beginning to end. Unfortunately, MaCobra wasn't able to pick up a Fire Flower in this level, but he'll still have another opportunity as he's going into the second fort.
Again, it's just so important to hold on to these power-ups, fire in particular. Just makes the speedrun that much easier for you. And, you know, especially in certain levels like Boom Boom fights, it speeds up those levels so much. So MaCobra losing that and struggling to keep it is what's making him fall behind here.
All right, so Aweglib is coming up on the second fort. He's able to get that early P-speed right off the donut lift, so really good job to him. So he wants to carry that speed all the way with him to the Boom Boom fight, and that's going to save him roughly 2 seconds.
And we see Macro is going to pick up this Fire Flower here. Going to be able to match that Boom Boom fight with Aweglib. Saving those 2 seconds, like we said.
Alright, so Aweglib is getting ready to enter the World 4 airship, where he's going to be coming up on Iggy Koopa. That's going to be one of the more annoying boss kills, at least as far as traditional jump kills are concerned. So we'll see if he decides to go for a fire kill here. And I complain about the jump kill just because, similar to the cheap cheeps you encounter in 3-2, sometimes he could just leap up really fast as you're trying to come in contact with him. So there is that possibility that you could just take damage and fall right through him.
You see these guys taking on this ship here, and as you can see, it's just at a complete snail's pace.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the slower airships in the game, so this is definitely a good opportunity if you want to go on a bathroom break or grab a couple of snacks. That was a good opportunity to do so. And interestingly enough, this actually isn't the longest airship in the game. That would actually be World 7, which is a whopping good 2 minutes.
Well, speaking of good breaks, talk about Smash and Splash coming up here in a week. Big event. We've got Mario Kart Double Dash and 16-star Super Mario 64 tournament finishing up there. Make sure to tune in if you guys can make it. Check that out. !bracket or exclamation point bracket in chat. get more information on it. We've got merch, GSA merch, shirts and sweaters. Make sure to check that out. We'll have Smash and Splash stuff come out as well. So make sure to check that out. Again, ! bracket for more information about Smash and Splash and our other events, and ! merch. Find out and check out the shirts and stuff.
Alright, so it looks like Aweglib had no problem taking out Iggy, so he's going to be moving on to World 5. And once again, MaCobra is doing a really good job just keeping really close to, in time. So he'll be joining Aweglib very shortly. Unfortunately, just as I had mentioned before, he fell right through Iggy's hitbox and then just took damage. So it's going to be a major inconvenience entering World 5 without a Fire Flower. He'll have another opportunity to pick up one in level 5-2, but it's going to be a little out of his way because he's going to have to enter a separate pipe in order to grab it.
Well, here we are, World 5. Things are going to start heating up here as we get to the second half of the game.
Ooh, unfortunately, those fireballs were a little bit mistimed, so he took some damage from the nippers on the bottom.
And Macro taking some damage there now. Small Mario needs to. Gonna come back. Oh, is gonna be able to pick up that star. Finish up this level.
Right, Aweglib is making his way to the upper portion of 5-2, so this is where he's going to have an opportunity to pick up the Fire Flower. As you see, he's entering that pipe. And even though it is an inconvenience, it's definitely going to be worthwhile in the long run because that Fire Flower is going to be coming in handy for when he does the Boom Boom kill, which will save him 4 seconds in that fort. And he's going to be making additional use of the fire when he enters 5-3.
Nice little moonwalk there for Macro.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that when you're running at maximum P speed normally, I believe your P speed value is 56. But when you're sliding off a slope downhill, you go a little bit faster than P speed. I want to say either 61 or 63. And then when you continue doing frame perfect jumps, you can maintain that momentum and travel a little bit faster.
So MaCobra doing a good job of being small Mario. Again, he's in a precarious situation. Takes a slight lead. Probably fall a little bit behind here as he picks up this mushroom.
Alright, so Aweglib is maintaining P-speed into the second pipe. Unfortunately, he landed in between those two small crevices and took some damage from the monsters below. So you'll have the opportunity to pick up a Fire Flower right here, but unfortunately it's going to cost him a little bit of time.
Macro is going to do the same. But we'll lose it immediately, unfortunately. Just mistimed that fireball coming at him. That would be extremely unfortunate for Macro.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be a shame because he'll want to actually have you have that Fire Flower going into 5-7 and the second fort that's going to be coming up in the cloud portion of this world. He'll still have another opportunity to get the Fire Flower pickup in 5-7, but it'll be a little bit trickier in order to achieve that. He could pick up a Raccoon Leaf in 5-6 during the auto-scroller phase, and then just damage boost to pick it up from the wooden block in 5-7, and then still maintain his P-speed through a frame-perfect jumping. But we'll see if how he decides to approach that as that time comes. Unfortunately, Aweglib lost his P-speed in the first floor of the Spiral Tower, so he's going to want to be a little cautious as he's going past those thwomps. So, interestingly, he is able to just barely make it by. So, and he's still able to maintain the Fire Flower, which is going to be the most important part as he's making his way out. All right, so Aweglib makes his way out of the tower with a 271. Definitely a pretty solid time considering he didn't have that P-speed in the beginning. And he's making his way over to 5-4. It's pretty straightforward in terms of execution. The first platform you're on is just long enough to build P-speed, and you're going to want to carry it with you past the spinners and the wooden blocks that come up.
So you might have noticed Macro losing Big Mario, going back down to Small Mario here because of Thwomp. Again, this has just been this has kind of been the thing here for this race for Macro, just having those power-ups and losing them slowly but surely, costing him time in other areas. And Aweglib just completely missing the finishing card there.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the optimal strat in 5-5 is just you want to do a turn back on that first block you're standing on in order to get as much of the ground to run on as possible. And you could potentially build early P-speed a little bit sooner than that donut lift bridge that he made his way past. That'll save you 1.5 seconds, but again, it's not one of those things that are absolutely necessary, and there's an element of risk to it just because those Paragoombas fly so close to you as you're making your way past the obstacles that are in your way when you're doing your small jumps. And then there are some possibilities where you can just get frame ruled and just not get the P-speed at all. Or you can rub against one of the wooden blocks and then just grab a raccoon leaf that could just kill your speed from there on forward. They're both making their way through the auto-scroller right now. You'll notice that both of our runners make a brief pause before they enter the pipe at the end of the level, and they do this because of the way the game loads the exits. If you enter the pipe at the earliest possible moment, it's possible to be crushed by the outer borders of the level while it's still scrolling, and then take a death there. And to be honest, I had no idea that was even a thing until around this time last year when I learned the hard way. So unfortunately, Aweglib loses his P-speed, but he's able to get a pretty good recovery, and he's still able to maintain his fire, which is going to be coming in handy for this next fort.
MaCobra picking up Fire Flower there.
So he doesn't have to go for the P-speed strat, but he takes a much safer approach that will guarantee him allowing him to keep his power up to the end.
Well, that's again, this has been the story for Macro. Is just he's losing these power ups, so he'll want to hold on to this, try to match Aweglib as best he possibly can. Take on these Hammer Bros pretty easily.
It looks like both players are having some issues with a Hammer Bro that just keeps running away, and generally, when you do 100%, you want to take them out as soon as you can, just because every turn that they're on the map, they move around a couple spaces, and the amount they move around, they can move 1 space, 2 or 3 or 20 if you get a marathon, and a lot of that is a function of RNG.
Well, just as Aweglib's finishing up 5-8 there, MaCobra is entering it, so 1-5-8 apart from one another.
Yeah, 5-8 is another one of those levels that are pretty straightforward in terms of execution. As long as you're running on as much of the surface as you can for those first 3 platforms, you'll get your P-speed no problem, and then you just want to carry it to the end. You could just do evenly paced small jumps along the way, and then just do a dog jump just to make sure that you don't come in contact with any of the spinies as you're making your way to exit to that pipe. So they're both in 5-9 now, which is one of the more disdained auto-scrollers that are in the game. Some of those platforms that you board can be a little unnerving, especially if you don't have a fire flower equipped and you want to avoid taking damage from those fire snakes that can maneuver around. The first one is very easy to snipe if you have Fire Mario, and the second one you could just bait close to you, and then just shift to the right so that it just flies underneath your feet and just self-stomps itself.
We'll see Aweglib taking on this auto-scrolling ship. Kind of the marker of the end of these worlds for Super Mario Bros. 3. We see Macro closely behind.
Yeah, World 5 Airship is the home of Roy Koopa. It's going to be one of the first Koopas we encounter out of the two in the game, where every time you do a jump on him, he'll go into his crouching shell state and then just generate breaks along the way. So you want to carefully time your jump so that you just don't get stun locked and then just take a lot of damage along the way. It's also, since they're both approaching the ship the exact same way, every time you do 100%, you can be guaranteed the same pattern every time. So it's also a good opportunity to just do a fire kill, since he's just going to move forward and then just kind of stand there for a couple of seconds before doing anything else. So it's one of the easier fire kills in the game, if you can anticipate the pattern. And it looks like Aweglib is able to get that no problem, so really good job on his part, and he'll be making his way over to World 6. Definitely the most annoying world for any 100% runner. It's definitely the one you want to be practicing the most, just because there's so many ways you can get trapped and killed when you're Small Mario, especially.
And we see Macro losing fire again. Unfortunately, in that Koopa fight, Roy.
Yeah, that's a shame.
We'll move on to World 6.
So while it's most desirable to get early P-Speed on those upper platforms in the beginning, it's not absolutely essential, because you can have that P-Speed by the time you snipe out that first piranha that's on the ground. And depending on where your position, where that piranha's positioned, it's a good visual cue for when you're supposed to jump on that first pipe and then just continue leaping to the end zone. 6-3 and 6-2 are not levels where you necessarily have to have a Fire Flower, but it's nice to have just so that you have 2 extra HP to damage boost when you're making your way through the spike bed in the fort. So even if he picks up a Raccoon Tail in 6-2, that'll be perfectly fine for him. Yeah, a lot of the trickier levels that are in World 6 in terms of execution, like 6-1 and 6-3 and 6-10, and 6-6, those are levels that you can bypass if you're doing any percent warpless, just because you have use of those 2 hammers that you can break rocks and then just open up shortcuts for you. So the rest of those levels are pretty straightforward in terms of execution. I like to refer to them as autopilot levels, just because there's a predetermined way to do that is pretty consistent each time. But it's definitely you definitely want to keep an eye out closer as you make your way through these levels.
So it looks like Aweglib is behind Macro here, but it is to note that he already took out some Hammer Bros. Macro has yet to take on those Hammer Bros, so while you see Macro with the lead, it would appear at this moment, he will probably lose it here in a moment. Just a Hammer Bro fights.
So MaCobra's taking a little bit safe with that Hammer Bro fight, since he doesn't have a power-up in order to get a quick kill on them, which is perfectly fair when you're in that situation. It is possible to get an early jump kill on them if you decide to just do YOLO strats, but when you're in a situation like this where you actually need power-ups for the fort, it's good to play it a little bit safe. So we see Aweglib doing his damage boost, as I mentioned before, and he's going to carry that star to Boom Boom and then just get a quick kill on him.
So nice that that star actually does kill the Boom Boom there.
Yeah, when you do the star kill on Boom Boom, you'll notice a little graphical glitch in the question mark coin that ends the level. You'll notice it's flipped upside down. And this is the result of what's known as overkilling. And what that means is, usually when you do a fire kill on Boom Boom, he has a predetermined health value. And every time you hit him with those 5 fireballs, he hits a value that will allow him to convert into that coin. It's just the way that he's programmed. But sometimes, if he takes too much damage on a single frame, sometimes he'll go below whatever that threshold is to do the conversion. So sometimes you end up with the star that'll just force him straight to 0 HP, and then he ends up with you end up with that upside down coin. Or sometimes he'll take too much damage from the hammer suit, and then sometimes he'll go below the whatever that integer value is. So then it would require even more fireballs or even more hammers in order to finish him off. So it's something you definitely want to avoid, just because it'll cost you a little extra time. And if all else fails, you could also do a traditional jump kill. That'll work 100% of the time.
You see Aweglib opting to pick up that the P-Wing.
Yeah, it's actually optimal to do 6-6 first, just because you're already small Mario coming out of 6-4, and you want to have a small hitbox as you're navigating through those narrow water passages and avoiding the cheeps. You want to get that early P-speed as you're running through the water right in the beginning, as you're going down that first hill, because if you're able to navigate that water fast enough, you're actually able to despawn the second piranha plant among those series of pipes as you're making your way to the exit. And then as soon as you make your way through 6-6, it's very easy to just pick up a P-Wing and then just do the despawn strat with those 2 nippers that are on the upper ceiling. So we see MaCobra taking that approach right now, and he's able to get that strat no problem. So the way despawn works is that sometimes the game just doesn't load a particular enemy if there's already too many existing sprites on the screen at a particular moment. So you're able to trigger that despawn if you're able just to run past those nippers, snipe out the first tube with the tail whip, and then just run down the hill before making your way onto the upper section where the pipe is. And then sometimes, if you're lucky, you're able to despawn both of them, interestingly enough.
We've got both these guys with squirrel suits making their way through the same level. Wanting to avoid these fire chain chomps. They can cause such havoc, you know, in a run, if you're not able to avoid them. But both guys doing a pretty good job of avoiding them. Timing out these donut drops.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have a fire tail whip, it's very easy to just make use of that tail whip just to get those fire snakes out of the way. And even though you have an opportunity in 5-7 to pick up a fire flower, you still want to hold on to your tail here, just because as we see Aweglib coming up, he wants to fly into those lower sections to avoid the horizontal moving thwomps that would otherwise get in his way and slow him down. And they can just damage boost past that last set. So he can still make the use of his speed coming up on the Boom Boom fight. And he could just stay as the traditionally big Mushroom Mario as he enters 6-8. So we see MaCobra not too far behind, maybe half a stage apart right at this point. So we see Aweglib, he's able to get that quick ice block grab, and he's able to throw it just so it's at the far left end of that platform. And you want to throw that ice block as soon as you can, because it's the best way to avoid getting lag, which could influence your ability to get P-speed as you're running past those small hills. So he took a little bit of damage along the way, but he was able to do a little bit of improvising and make his way in still a soundly fashion, in a timely fashion. Sorry. And even if he took damage, it doesn't matter since he was still able to equip that P-Wing anyway.
Yeah, these guys, they really hoard these items. for as long as they possibly can until the end of these runs. You know, we haven't seen them use a single item until now, and Aweglib unfortunately taking a hit there, losing Scroll Tail there. We'll pick up the Fire Flower though.
Yeah, there's two opportunities to pick up a Fire Flower when you enter the level with the Raccoon Tail or as Big Mario generally. And the optimal one would be to go for the first one, just because you could build P-Speed on those small sets of platforms and then just fly your way up, convert into the Fire Flower while maintaining your P-Speed, and then just open up a path for yourself to make your way past those Buster Beetles with the ice blocks. It's a bit of tough maneuvering, especially since your P-Speed can be easily killed if you bunk into the wall and then hit a sub-pixel. But yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, so if it's not something you're able to pull off consistently, it's really not the end of the world, but it's a nice bonus to have. But the key is, at the end of the day, is still maintaining that Fire Flower so that you can carry it with you, not just past 6F3 as we saw Aweglib do, but at least as far as level 7-2 that will be coming up later. So 6-3, I mean, the World 6 airship is going to be where both of our racers are going to be facing MaCobra. There's two ways that you could potentially fire kill him if they decide to go that route. The first of which I prefer to do is the one where you just shoot him right in the face in pairs. And then as you're shooting fireballs 5 and 6, you follow that up with an immediate stomp on his head. And then when he's in that crouched shell position, you could land those last four pretty easily. And then the alternative fire kill would just be to get a couple shots right in the beginning, get a stomp kill on them, and then just ride on his crouch shell position while he's up against the wall. And that's pretty easy to do because he's always going to be in that far right end for a couple seconds before he decides to move. But you have to be really fast with those fireballs because as soon as he starts making his way across the battle arena, that can really complicate things because he'll have a shield of those 3 or 4 green balls that he shoots out that are getting in your way, and it's very easy to take damage in that regard.
So Aweglib was able to get that clip there. Not really speeding up anything, just makes the ship a little bit easier. Macro, not able to get that clip. There about near the beginning of the ship.
So Aweglib is playing it safe. He's going to do the traditional jump kill, which is perfectly fine because there's only a 2-second difference between a jump kill and a fire kill. And it's definitely a lot easier just to pull off because it's very easy to just bounce off those green balls as soon as they spawn, and they'll always be out of your way. And he's always going to be in that same position, right up against the right side of the wall. So as we enter World 7, we will want to get our blessed RNGs out in chat. So we'll be coming up on 7-1, where both racers are going to be trying to clip through that first wall in the doorway so that they don't have to go through the level normally. So we'll see how many tries it takes for either of them.
Well, unfortunately, they have multiple attempts here at this clip before it really loses any time. I believe it's like you can go with this wall about 12 times before you start actually losing time. And Aweglib, you can see having a lot of difficulty here with it. Kind of lost count on both these guys. Pretty much tied up. And Macro getting it first will take the lead.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and Aweglib just so much difficulty with this. I mean, at this point, going through the level would have saved him time.
Oh no.
This is hard to watch.
So we see MaCobra making his way through 7-2. As I had mentioned before, he wants to keep that fire flower because he's able to snipe out that first nipper that would be in his way without having to use one of his stars, and then he can just do a damage boost past with P-Speed past the Piranha Plant, and then still be able to net that height in order to clear the gap, so he doesn't have to build a no-block bridge.
Man, Aweglib just not giving up on this clip. They're finally getting it.
Oh, that's gotta be rough, man.
I mean, oh, holy moly. I mean, he's got to be absolutely aching over that right now.
Yeah, it's worth noting that when you go through level 7-1, traditionally, like if you enter the doorway and then just make your way over to the top, that'll take you about 50 to 51 seconds. It definitely helps if you have that fire flower along the way. But if you're able to get that first clip on your first try, that'll save you 36 seconds. That would, of course, be ideal, but results can always vary in these runs.
Well, that right there, I mean, that was upwards of a minute of just him attempting to get that clip.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to clear the gap, so we had to build a bit of a note bridge there, so that's going to cost him a good 15 to 20 seconds as well.
Yeah, just he wasn't able to get P-Speed there at the beginning. Oh, and losing Big Mario as well.
So we see MaCobra was able to make the most use of his P-Wing in 7-5. So we see some pretty similar strats to what we saw in the pyramid. He was able to carry a Koopa shell onto the upper area, and then just use it, take advantage of its invincibility as he's making his way past the ricocheting shell, past that small passageway. So he's coming up on level 7-4 now, traditionally the sea creature level. So this is going to be a pretty slow auto-scroller as well. But he's going to want to maintain that raccoon tail for as long as he can by not taking any damage. And worst case scenario, he does. He could still pick up 2 fire flowers along the way, one right at the beginning and right at the end. The only thing is that he's going to have to readjust his P-Wing strat if he was planning on using that for level 7-9 later on to fly over half of the maze. It's a good safety measure to have, but it's not absolutely necessary. Looks like MaCobra did take some damage there, but he'll still have other options available to him when the time comes to enter 7-9. The way those the fish spawn in 7-4 is RNG, but the best you can do in these sorts of situations is to bait the bloopers as far to the left hand of the screen as you can in order to get them off the screen sooner, so you can avoid those lag frames as much as possible.
Looked like Macro wanted to go back for that fire flower, choosing not to because those cheap cheeps that were in the way.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain, but he'll still be able to make it through it no problem, and he wouldn't be holding onto that fire flower long anyway to make any real use of it. He's going to be switching over to the P-Wing shortly in order to enter the fort.
So I got a question. Why does the big fish essentially have what Alien has? Just another smaller version of himself inside his mouth.
That's a good question.
I've been going through this tournament and just reminded of that. And I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's something that's never really occurred to me as well.
So whoever made that level just watched Alien and was like, let's make the fish kind of like Alien, and then the administration was just like, yep, go with it. Pretty nice movement through this water level so far, not taking any damage. Able to hold on to this squirrel suit. Macro, again, like you said, pick up that P-Wing. Makes that castle so much easier, and we'll take out this Boom Boom.
So it looks like Aweglib was able to hold on to his raccoon tail, so he doesn't have to do as much menuing as he's making his way through these next 3 levels. And he'll have that P-Wing left over for when he decides to fly into 7-9, if he decides to take that path over doing the 4 wall clips. Alright, so MaCobra decided to take the path with the stars, and then he didn't enter the pipe in order to grab a hammer suit. So we'll just see how he decides to approach 7-9 and the fort that's going to be coming up. So he's entering 7-7 now. There is a way to skip over about 80% of the level, so you can avoid doing running with those stars. And that involves right in the beginning building P-speed before you enter the pipe, and then just trying to clip into the pipe through the wall in order to get to the exit. It's definitely one of the riskier strats, and the conventional wisdom would be just to attempt it 1 or 2 times before just deciding not to dwell on it and then just continue. So,
fake sync here. Completely different levels. But getting that finishing card at the same time, kind of cool to see. And Macro, see if he decides.
Yeah, he decided to take the P-Wing in 7-9, and then he was able to damage boost the Goomba. So we'll see if he decides to pick up a Fire Flower along the way, which I do believe he's going to do. It'll definitely serve him well as he enters 7F2.
Looks like he attempted to clip 1 time at least, but passed on it.
Yeah, there's definitely no harm in doing it at least once.
Well, that's what I've seen throughout this tournament. You know, you don't see that clip too often, but guys will try to attempt it at least once, just because it saves a bit of time. But once they try it once, they'll move on. They'll just move on.
Yeah, it looks like Aweglib tried to take a shot at the clip in 7-7, as I had mentioned before, but decided just to give it 2 shots and then just continue moving forward. Looks like he bumped the wall as he had his second star cycle, so unfortunately he did have to grab the 3rd one. You can get away with a 2 cycle run, but that would involve maintaining P-speed and just moving forward constantly without any interruption. You would have just enough invincibility frames just to make that last jump to clear the pipe. So Aweglib will be making use of his P-Wing as well to damage boost over half the maze.
And he's going to take a shot at this clip. Gets it! See if he gets the 2nd clip. Doesn't, again, just go try for it at least once, and then moves right along. But gets that 1st clip, so he'll save a little bit of time.
I see MaCobra was able to get the clip on the pipe in the item room. It doesn't really do anything, but it's nice to show off anyway, since you'll have the pipe transition to avoid soft locking.
A little swaggy move. Really, I like to see that sometimes. It's not showing off in any way, shape, or form, like to you know, to the other player per se, but it's just nice to see, hey, you know, this is something that you can do in the game. Show good for the viewers.
Exactly. So MaCobra still has a pretty solid lead going into the World 7 airship. This is the longest airship in the game. It's roughly 2 minutes. So he's going to be coming up on our 2nd heavy Koopa, so to speak. So he'll also be generating some quakes with every jump that he makes. So he's going to want to be a little bit careful there. And the good thing about that ship is that even if you took some damage in the fort or the Piranha plant that's right before this, you have 2 power-up blocks you can take advantage of, so you can get a mushroom, and both of them come with fire flowers. So you'll be prepared for World 8, even if you didn't get the Hammer Suit in 7-8 or the Toad House.
Oh, Macro just taking his precious time on this ship again. It just takes so long. This particular ship, like I said, 2 minutes. Gotta keep yourself active, keep yourself awake, patient. Definitely lose yourself in these auto scrollers.
Yeah, you don't want to sleep on these rocky wrenches, because the second you stop paying attention, one of them can just snipe you no problem. And that's definitely happened at times in runs where I've just lost my hammer suit because I just wasn't paying attention for a split second. Unfortunately, MaCobra took some damage to the Ludwig fight, but he's able to land that last jump kill, so he'll have another opportunity to grab a fire flower in in either the third hand or in or the Navy if he decides to go for that risky jump.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Macro moving into our final world, World 8. Infamous for the military prowess that it has, along with the famous godlike hands that come out of nowhere. But definitely a good finisher up for a game. Macro with a decent-sized lead.
It's also worth noting that the race is never over until it's over, so there will still be a couple more opportunities. Even though there's still a good handful of auto-scrollers throughout World 8, there are still going to be some levels that will require some careful execution. So there are still a couple opportunities for Aweglib to catch up, so we'll see how both of them approach World 8.
Well, you know, it could always come down to the Bowser fight. You know, if
That's absolutely true. It depends on what power-ups they'll have and if they take any damage along the way, or what they have in their inventory at the time they make their way past the World 8 fort.
Exactly. Like if you decide to go with the hammer suit, obviously that's the fastest way to kill Bowser, but you don't have to have a hammer suit and you decide to go with Fire Flower, you know, there's that takes a little bit longer. But then obviously if you lose either of those power-ups throughout that castle on the way to Bowser, which we have seen before, you obviously have to take the longer route and where he destroys the floor.
Yeah, once you're past the World 8 fort, there's just no turning back, and you're just not going to get any more Fire Flowers from there on out. And the only power-ups that would be available in Bowser's castle are the raccoon leaves. So that's not really going to help you against Bowser. In fact, that would probably slow you down as you're making your way toward him.
So far, so good for Macro. Making his way past these tanks. Gonna take on the Navy now. Trying to go back for that Fire Flower, not able to grab it.
Yeah, so that Boom Boom fight is going to be a couple seconds longer just because he has to get that normal jump kill. But I would say at this point he's still in pretty good shape, so it's a pretty negligible time loss. Again, he'll have another opportunity to grab a Fire Flower if he decides to pit stop for it in the third hand.
Mako working through. Navy. These levels are just so long. You know. Here in World 8.
Yeah, there's nothing to. There's not really going to be much going on aside from just dodging a couple slow cannonballs along the way and sniping at whatever rocket wrenches coming in your way. Every once in a while, you'll get a pattern with the boomerang bro where he steps forward and then just has a little delay in the way he throws his boomerang. So sometimes you could snipe him a little bit early, and you don't have to wait for that boomerang to exit the screen, so that could save you about a second. Aweglib already had a Fire Flower, but he decided to go for the extra flower anyway, and he was able to actually get it. So really impressive stuff.
When we see here, Mako working his way through these hand stages. Now, again, hand RNG plays a big role in other routes of Super Mario Bros. 3. Not really too much of a problem here. I mean, it's the difference between watching the hand pull you down, which wastes about a second, and just going straight into the level.
Yeah, the hand grabs can definitely be a major equalizer when you're doing 80% warpless or an 80% no wrong warp run. But I mean, the first hand it only takes about 16 seconds when you're going through it optimally. The second hand is 15, and the third one is 19 seconds. But again, the results could vary depending on your execution. But the only time variables that could really be a major influence in 100% are just the hand animations on the world map as they pull you in. So it's definitely still in your best interest to just enter the levels manually and not get that hand animation, because each of them cost about 1.5 seconds.
As we see there, Aweglib getting pulled in by that first hand. Did Mako get handless?
Oh, I must have missed
no
it.
hands? And he definitely didn't get the second or the third. I didn't see if he got the first or not.
I couldn't say with any degree of certainty. But nonetheless, he has his fire flower, so that's going to be really helpful for him as he's making his way through the Air Force. It's one of those. It's definitely the fastest auto-scroller in the game. It's twice as fast as the traditional auto-scroller airships. But you still want to be as careful as you can with taking out those rocky wrenches as soon as you can, because you don't want those wrenches to populate the screen and just make your platform jumping a little more complicated than it needs to be.
So, question in chat: what do we mean by hands? In World 8, you go across 5 panels. You can get pulled down by hands in 3 of those panels, and that matters in other routes other than 100%, simply because of the RNG involved. In 100%, though, we're gonna complete those levels regardless. And as Teeks was saying, the animation takes about 1.5 seconds. So that's the only reason why you want to go in manually. But Mako, really nice job here. This time, holding on to that fire flower very nicely. Gonna try to snipe the sun here. Oh, gonna lose fire though.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't really snipe the angry sun when you have the fire flower. That's your only option is if you have the hammer suit. But even so, he's still able to clear a path up the hill with those piranha plants. Worst case scenario, even if you don't have it equipped, you could still damage boost past them and then just kind of YOLO past the angry sun to the exit. And you'll still have those leaves left over if you want to fall back on them to grab the fire flower in World 8 Fort. So he's making his way through the P-switch run right now, so we'll see if he's able to enter that door in one cycle. The only tricky part is just making your way past those 2 roto discs that are spinning around, and he's able to get it. So MaCobra is well on his way to finish the Boom Boom and then make his way over to our last auto-scroller. So now that doesn't look like Aweglib will have anything equipped for 8-2, so we'll see if he decides to still maneuver his way past the piranhas, or so it looks like he's going to do that. So he's moving straight forward with the P-speed, so looks like he's going to take that damage boost there, so he'll still be able to maintain his P-speed. Makes his way over to the gap, and he's just able to dodge the angry sun going to that exit. So a 292 on the clock for that level is definitely a very good time to have, all things considered. So he's going to be extra safe here in terms of navigating these rotor discs by taking a star into the fort. So he'll definitely have a good setup as he's making his way over to the conveyor belts. So we'll see if he's able to get that that 1 cycle P-switch as well. Meanwhile, MaCobra is midway through the super tank right now. This auto-scroller is about 1 minute and 10 seconds. So as soon as you see that last rocky wrench, you know he's right at the end. So there he is.
Nice little fake sync boom boom fight there. And Mako heading on in here, final castle. Gonna take on Bowser here, choosing not to take the hammer suit in.
Oh, I forgot. Did he have a hammer suit in his inventory from the Toad House?
I don't remember. Oh, he doesn't have it. He's using Fire Flower though.
Yeah, it could very well be that he just didn't have it equipped. But it looks like he tried to do the lower elevator clip. Wasn't successful with that, but again, didn't try to dwell on it too much, which was definitely be in his best interest. So he looks like he's over to Bowser right now, and then as soon as he hits the 35 shots on Bowser, then he'll be down. So that'll save him 20 seconds over doing the stomp kill with breaking the floor. So in about 10 to 15 seconds, as soon as he enters the door, that'll be time for him.
Wow. Well, we'll have to ask Aweglib about 7-1, kind of the deal breaker for him. That's where he lost that lead and has been behind the whole time.
Yeah.
Mako
ends with the 114.41, so get your GGs out in chat for him.
GG's out in chat for Mako. Is it Mako or Mako? I can't decide which one it is.
I always say MaCobra.
Okay.
So I see the Cobra, the C is capitalized, so.
So we'll have Aweglib finish up here as well.
He's able to get the people's clip on his first try as well. So we'll see if he is able to get that early P speed, making his way past the statues, and it looks like he is.
It is to note, Mako is finished just what is that? 26 seconds above his PB.
Oh, so we got a new PB?
No, he was just 26 seconds above. So his PB is a 1:14.15 on the leaderboards. And Aweglib with a 1:14.03 on the leaderboard. So 2 minutes behind his PB. We had a 1:16.03. Aweglib saying what everyone's thinking he would have said about 7-1. Sounds about right.
Yeah, I honestly can't blame him.
Unfortunately, can't repeat it. But, yeah, it sounds about right. And looks like we might be passing on interviews. Yeah, Aweglib heading out.
We'll see if we're looking at the moment to see if
yeah, we've got MaCobra here.
All right, congratulations on the race, MaCobra.
Thank you, GG's.
GG's indeed. So 26 seconds above your PB. How does that feel?
Well, I thought I was doing pretty well there. A couple of mess ups here and there, but I'll take it.
So
Good time overall.
The thing that I noticed was you were struggling holding on to power ups.
I like to thank Iggy Cooper for that one.
But just anything to comment regarding that at all?
Yeah, I guess I sort of jumped the gun in places and trying to hold on to power ups and end up losing them. So trying to do that as much next time.
Yeah, it looks like you had really good knowledge of what the strats were involved for traditional 100% runs look like, but it's just a little bit of touch-ups in terms of execution. And again, anything can happen in these sorts of these race scenarios. So for a no reset run, I think you did a really solid job.
Thanks. Warfree is pretty interesting. Got the runaway bro in the end there, then he came back and
yeah,
power up there, and then Bree 6 I had to scare as well with the spinner.
Yeah, those spinners can be really finicky, just because of the physics when you land on them. Sometimes you can get delayed A presses, and it can be really scary because it's very easy to just fall off and just get thrown right to your death. So definitely a good clutch in that regard.
Yeah, I definitely had to go back, remember where the fire backups were. Some of them end up being leaves, but that's okay. I think I got most of them. Tried to hold on to them, but unfortunately, things happen.
Well, GG's, MaCobra, on the win. You're going to be moving forward here in this tournament. Unfortunately, Aweglib getting knocked out here. And Teeks, anything else you got left to say?
Yeah, as we were commenting on earlier, I don't know if you were familiar, MaCobra. I don't know if you were following along with the progress of the race, but you
Hmm.
guys were really close for the majority of the race. I think you guys were like just a couple seconds to a half a level apart from each other for
Oh wow.
most of the time. But
Yeah.
you were able to get that 7-1 clip a lot earlier than Aweglib did, so that was a major swing factor in this race.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that can be annoying. I mean, with the subpixels and stuff. I mean, I probably got it slow. Like it was like 10 tries, I think, around that.
Yeah, yeah, it's worth noting that when it comes to wall clip generally, it's a lot of that has to do with your subpixel value as you enter the level, and a lot of that is influenced by the level you just played beforehand.
Hmm.
While there is that possibility that you could manipulate it, it's not really practical to do for an RTA run. So, for all intents and purposes, it really does just come down to a matter of winning the lottery if you're able to get it on your first few tries.
Yep, you got it.
So, yeah, do you
Oh,
have any thoughts or any expectations or things you really want to work on as the bracket moves forward?
Nothing in particular. I think I'll just wing it next week against Zuckerby and see what happens. He's a really good runner. So
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. He's definitely one of the more consistent runners I've seen over the past year. He actually started a couple months after I did, and the way he just kind of climbed that leaderboard and just the consistent manner in which he plays, he's definitely going to be a force to reckon with as this tournament moves forward. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he makes it really far in this tournament. So I wish you the best of luck in that regard. Um,
thanks. I'll need
uh,
it.
all right.
absolutely.
Well, GG's MaCobra on the win. That'll be it for us here with Super Mario Bros. 3. We still have races going on later. We've got Super Mario Sunshine at 9 o'clock tonight. Reed versus JJ SRL. Super Mario Sunshine in full swing as well. So make sure to stick around if you're interested in that. But Teeks, thank you so much for joining me in the booth. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to give a big thank you again to GSA for hosting this 100% SMB3 100% tournament, and just a big thank you to the community overall. Big thank you to you as well, Scotch, and to Milo for the providing the restream for tonight's session. So we'll be continuing the SMB3 tournament bracket on Saturday afternoon. It'll be a race between Supersonic and myself. So I'll definitely be catching you soon. And congratulations again, once again to MaCobra. And I'll be catching you guys really soon. So
All right.
GG's everyone, and have a good night.
Take it easy.